So he started robbing essential properties of computers, and he was actually talking about God. So what you're doing right now is you're taking essential properties and you're robbing them. Did he leave?
I kicked him out because he was just it was just clear that he was being dishonest and deceptive at that point.
Oh,
And I
okay, all
probably
right.
should have cut him off sooner, but yeah, he obviously wasn't focusing and he wasn't interested in doing that either. So, oh, it looks like Tom is still in the room. So let's see if he has a rebuttal. Okay, that he can be neutral. It's actually going to substantiate the premises.
Yeah,
We'll try
so
this again. We'll try this again.
neutrality just refers to a propositional attitude or an attitude towards something, and you
Yeah.
can reserve
Well, you just
judgment.
hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. If it is a propositional attitude and you affirm, right? So let's be clear. Agnosticism is the withholdment is a withholding of a propositional attitude, but you're contradicting yourself because you accepted earlier that everyone has a propositional attitude with reference to their
Yeah, like the
metaphysical
proposition
framework.
could be like, do you have a position or
Okay.
do you not have a position or
No,
something like
no,
that.
no, 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 no. Tom, this is just pathetic. Okay. A metaphysic is
Saying that
not
it's
what
pathetic
is
doesn't do
a
anything,
metaphysic.
JRobin.
I'm
Just
ex well,
saying it's pathetic,
I'm
you gotta
explaining it to you.
show.
I'm explaining it right now. I'm talking and you're over talking me. I just muted you too, by the way. So if you're talking, I can't hear you. Um, a metaphysic, okay, is going to answer questions about the nature of reality. Okay? That's what a metaphysic is by definition. Okay? And metaphysics are propositional. You already accepted that, for one, everyone who's operating meaningfully and intelligibly in the world has a metaphysic, and two, that metaphysics are propositional. So by that, we're saying that they're going to affirm states of affairs or affirm things about the nature of reality. Now, God, of course, by definition, is in the category of a metaphysical framework. It's the creator creation distinction. Okay? The proposition that you affirm with reference to your metaphysical framework is going to entail either the creator creation distinction or the denial of that. The not creator creation distinction is going to entail the falsity of the proposition that the creator creation distinction is true. Do you accept that? Unmute your mic, Tom. Tom, unmute your mic. Did somebody move into the audience? Am I coming in clearly? Just want to make sure. Am I coming in
Yeah,
well?
you're coming through just fine. You haven't wrote about it in quite a while.
Yeah, you good, man.
Okay, did anyone kick him to the audience? He moved
I,
himself
I,
to the audience. Did he run away,
I
really?
did
Did he
not.
really run away?
I did not kick him.
Oh, okay. So it's on record that Tom ran away from defending his position. I bet it's because I muted him when he was over talking me, and he's going to use that as an excuse.
Well,
He wants
here's
to
the
take
thing.
any
We
excuse
can
at
give him
all.
the benefit of the doubt. I mean,
All right, I'll
because
invite him back up. Fine.
he's obviously recording this. So I mean, here's the thing. Just
Well,
give
he
him the
just
benefit
recorded
of the
himself
doubt.
running
Just say
away.
he just lost. Just give him the benefit of the doubt and say he just lost connection or something.
Yeah, if you meet me again, I'll just
Okay.
leave. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
just just
Yeah. So
now
listen.
that
Listen
you
here.
know,
Listen
yeah.
here. Yeah. Then what you're gonna do, right, is you're gonna purposely overtalk and obstruct so that I will mute you, and then you have an excuse to leave. So like, don't pretend like we don't see your game. I wasn't born yesterday. Okay. So whatever proposition you affirm is going to entail the one of two propositions: the truth of the creator creation distinction, or the falsity thereof. Do you accept that?
Ontologically, only one can be the case. But I could
Okay.
affirm
That's
anything
not
that
what I
you
asked
want. I
you.
could
That's not what
affirm
I
nothing.
asked you.
By the
That's
way,
not what I
you've
asked
already
you.
revised your script to it's
That's not
impossible
what
to
I
be
asked you.
neutral to it's not impossible, or else you're gonna
I
be
want to hear an
and if you
answer. I
can
want
do
to
it,
hear an answer to
but
my
you'll just be
question.
irrational. So I've
I
already
want to hear an
adjusted your
answer to
script.
I want to hear an answer to my question. Okay? This is not like complicated here. Okay? The proposition that you're going to affirm with reference to your metaphysic is either going to entail the actuality of God or the non-actuality of God. The truth of the creator creation distinction, that is true, or that it's false. Do you accept that?
I don't even think that I mean, I'm just agnostic towards the entire thing.
I
So I
want
mean,
you to answer the question.
it's a
Does
metaphysical
the
framework, and it
proposition, does
doesn't
the
affirm
proposition,
God or
does the
not God.
proposition, does the
So no.
proposition, listen, does the proposition that's going to be affirmed by one's metaphysic entail
I
one of two
already
things?
disagree. I don't affirm anything as metaphysical.
Let me finish
I
answering
don't
asking the
affirm
question.
anything about the
Stop
ultimate
over
nature of
talking.
reality
If
with
you
my
listen,
metaphysical. I've
listen,
given you your
I
answer.
will
I've
mute you.
given you your answer.
I'll give you a reason to run away. I will give you a reason. Don't think I won't do that just because you say if I mute you, you're gonna run away. Don't think I'm not gonna do it. Okay? Does your proposition that you
Dude,
affirm with reference to your metaphysic,
I don't affirm anything.
does it entail either the truth or the actuality of God or the non-actuality of God? Is that the only two things it can entail? If someone was to have a metaphysic? Yes or no?
I already answered your question, bro.
It wasn't clear to me. So answer it again.
Were you listening to me at all? What did I say,
Let's hear it. I
JRobin?
want to hear it again. Obviously I didn't understand what you said. That's why I'm asking you again.
Yeah, I'm
So does
agnostic
the
about the
proposition
ultimate.
does no, I asked you a yes or no question.
Yeah, and then I answered no.
Does the proposition that one affirms entail either that God exists or that God does not exist?
Are you asking me if I must affirm that God exists or does not exist? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm asking right now is that the proposition that is going to
Which
be
proposition?
that will be
What
the
is the
metaphysical
proposition?
proposition. The metaphysical proposition.
Yes,
Is it
what's the
either going to be
proposition?
whatever it is? I'm asking, is it going to entail?
Tell
I'm
me what
asking,
it is.
is it going to
You want me to
entail?
answer a question? You're not even telling me what the proposition is? Get out of here, dude. What a
No, there.
joke.
Listen. I'm asking you. You don't. Maybe you don't understand what I'm asking you. Whatever proposition one person affirms, whatever proposition that is, will it
And the two
entail either
options are
that
God
God
exists
exists,
or God does not exist.
either the creator creation distinction, or not? Will it entail that? Yes or no?
And you're just saying that. I mean, my position is just like agnostic towards that. My position is agnostic towards that proposition. So I guess
Listen,
the answer
that's
is
not an
no.
answer to my question. Will a metaphysical framework either be the creator creation distinction or not? Yes or no?
Well, a metaphysical no.
That's just
That's
an
why
outright lie. That's an outright lie. Okay,
that's what agnosticism
is the
is.
color
That's what agnosticism is.
is the color of the grass either green or not? And if somebody were to affirm a proposition with reference to the color of the grass,
That's
are they
correct. The
affirming either
grass
the
is either
grease?
green or not green.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now if
That's
somebody were to
ontology
affirm
though.
if somebody were to affirm a proposition with reference to the color of the grass, will that proposition either entail that grass is green or the grass is not green?
If someone were to affirm the proposition, say the rest of it.
Somebody were to affirm a proposition with reference to the color of the grass, will that proposition either entail that the grass is green or that the grass is not green?
Ontologically, no.
Okay,
They can say
you're off the
whatever they
stage.
want, and
You're off
it's
the stage.
disconnected from ontology. Duh.
No. The proposition is going to be reflective of ontology. That's why propositions have truth values, because what it means for it to be true is that it's reflective of the real world. This is just
Right, but you
basic.
asked me if
Basic.
somebody
This is just like
affirming it
elementary.
means that the grass is green. That's just obviously dumb.
That's not what I said.
Agnostic.
That's not what I said. I said does the proposition entail, right? The proposition that entail the proposition that the grass is green or that the grass is not green. Is that an entailment of what the proposition that they affirm will be?
I don't even understand what you said, bro.
All right. Look, this is not complicated. I'll ask
Instead
you
of
one
just
more
saying
time.
the
I'll ask
proposition,
you one
you
more
should just
time.
spell it out, man.
I'll ask you one more
How
time.
about I ask
Okay?
you a question? You've asked me so many questions. I'll ask you a question. I'll just show you why you can be agnostic.
I'll mute you if you don't stop over talking.
Yeah, I
Does the
know. Yeah, I know you
proposition
want to mute me.
Okay, I will. Actually, you're off the stage. I'll kick you off yourself. You don't have to worry about it. I'll do it for you. Yeah, is this the best that they I have to offer, really? Honestly.
Classic time rabbit, huh?
Wait, could you go over that question again?
Yeah, maybe you can ask it. Maybe you can answer it. If somebody's going to affirm a proposition with reference to the color of the grass, okay, will that proposition either entail the proposition that the grass is green or the proposition that the grass is not green?
Not
Will it entail one of those two
necessarily, right? They
propositions?
might think that grass exists,
Okay,
but
then
not.
no, they're affirming a proposition with we're taking it for granted, so you weren't listening. I'm asking you, granting that they're affirming a proposition with reference to the color of the grass, will that proposition either be that the grass is green or that the grass is going to entail that the grass is not green?
It seems so.
Good. So the answer is yes. It's not a complicated issue, is it?
Yeah, but that's not the original question you framed to Tom.
That was the original question. I asked. You can play back from I've asked the same question numerous times, right? I've asked it not even in this conversation, but in previous conversations. I've given this exact same analogy, and it's been clear and uncomplicated because it's not meant to be a complicated. It's meant to bring clarity to the issue, right? If somebody's affirming a proposition with reference to the color of the grass, then that proposition is either going to entail that the grass is green, or it's going to entail that the grass is not green.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's what the proposition is going to entail. It's going to entail one of those two propositions.
Yeah, I'm
This is
sure
not
that.
complicated.
I'm sure that Tom's not going to disagree with that. I think that your original question about God, though, it's not like Tom affirms a proposition about the existence of God that entails God's existence, right? He
Well,
doesn't.
no, if okay, Danny, listen. If somebody is going to affirm a metaphysic, right, and God is in the category of a metaphysic, in the same way that green is in the category of a color, right? So then, if they are going to affirm a metaphysic, if they're going to be speaking with reference to a metaphysic, something with reference to the nature of reality, will that metaphysical proposition affirm or deny necessarily is going to entail one of the two
No,
that God
no. There are
exists?
metaphysical views that don't entail a view about theism. Like, for instance, I might think that
No,
there are
no,
numbers.
no.
There are numbers. That's a metaphysical view, but that doesn't entail God or not God.
By metaphysic, we're talking about the nature of things, what it means for
Yeah, the
things to be
nature of
founded,
things is such
fundamentally,
that
what it
there are
means,
numbers. Like,
what it
so.
means. No, listen, just listen. What it means fundamentally for things to be the case, right? Your ontology, right? What it means for things to be possible
Yeah,
or
I agree.
impossible,
I
what the
agree with that.
fundamental
So let me give
nature
you an
of things
example.
are.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree with you.
so
There's
listen,
nothing wrong with what you're saying. I'm just saying that
listen.
there are views like like I believe numbers exist.
The existence of God in answering that question is going to be mutually exclusive with anything else that does not hold to God's existence as an answer to those questions, right? If we say that the existence of God is the reason why anything is, can be, and cannot be, okay, as that because God is metaphysically primary and God is the causal basis for all things that are not Himself, then any other answer to that question is going to entail that there is no God. If you're going to posit something else as the reason why anything is the case, then you're going to by default be referencing the not God worldview.
Yeah, I'm just disputing that metaphysical positions always entail theism or atheism. I gave you an example. Take Neoplatonism or views about whether numbers exist. That's ontological. It's a metaphysical position to say numbers exist. That doesn't entail theism or atheism. So not all
I'm
metaphysical
not
views.
answering. I'm defining metaphysic in the sense of the grand scope of
Yeah, the
things or
grand
the
scope
nature
of
of
things that
reality.
there are
I'm
num.
not asking. I'm not asking you about numbers. Saying that numbers exist doesn't answer the question as to
That's a
why things
metaphysical
are the way they are.
position. I'm surely you're aware that's a
Okay, but
metaphysical position.
I am more than aware of that. But right now, what I'm talking about, when I'm asking you about what the metaphysical nature of things are, is not whether or not numbers exist, because that
That's a
bears no
metaphysical
relevance
position.
to as I am using these terms to what the nature of things ontologically are.
Yeah,
Right? The existence of number, the exist do numbers explain why anything is the case,
well,
why
they
all things
establish
are the case
truth
metaphysically?
values about all sorts of things. Sure.
Do they establish why things are the case fundamentally, what it means for things to be the case, what it means for things to be true, why things are possible or why anything's impossible? Does the existence of numbers explain any of that?
They can serve as truth conditions. So in that
I'm
sense,
not asking you what they can. I'm not asking you what they can or cannot do. I'm
That's
asking you,
not. That's
do
fundamentally not the
numbers
question.
explain why anything is the case? If you say the number two exists, does that tell you anything
yeah,
about why
the number
fundamentally
two.
uh anything is, can be, and cannot be?
Yeah, so the number two has the property of being an odd. So the proposition that two is an odd number is made true by that abstract object.
Okay, the
I'm
number
asking
two
you in the
doesn't
grand scope
explain.
of things.
The number
It
two
doesn't
doesn't
explain.
explain why us as humans
Well, I think
exist.
there's a pretty grand scope of things, right? There's a very fundamental view that
No, it's
Two.
not. What?
Did
Listen,
you just
listen.
talk past what I said? The
He's just
number
being pedantic at
two
this point. That's what he's
doesn't
doing.
explain
Well, I
why
guess I'm not
humans
understanding you,
exist.
JRobin. Maybe you need to be clear about what a metaphysical position is, because I just take that.
I
Study
defined it so
metaphysics.
every single time you brought up numbers as an analogy, I had to explain
Okay.
to you
It's
how
not
I'm
an
defining it,
analogy.
and
It's
then
an
you ignored
example of a metaphysical position.
my recapitulation of how I'm defining the terms.
Can you go over that recapitulation?
I've
Because
done
I'm
it
not getting
3 times now at this point. So I'll
it. Yeah,
do
I'm
it
not
again.
getting it because it's proprietary notion of metaphysics.
When I'm referring to metaphysics, I'm saying you're answering questions as it relates to the nature of things, right? So you're
Yeah,
answering
I
like, what
agree
does it
with that.
mean
That's how most philosophers
fundamentally?
use it.
What does it mean? Please don't overtalk. What does it mean fundamentally for things to be true, right? What does it mean fundamentally um, for things to have relationships with each other, like facts? What is a fundamental relationship between facts? What does it mean that that things are possible or impossible or necessary? Okay. Um, the number two is not going to get you answer why things are true. What it means for a state of affairs to be. The number two doesn't help you there. It's not an answer to any of those questions.
Sure,
So,
it
and
is.
as I'm using this definition of metaphysics, it doesn't answer that question.
Yeah, I'm using your same notion. I agree with you that most philosophers use metaphysics the way you do, and part of their analysis is that what makes it true, such that two is an odd number, and some people postulate the number
No, no,
two
no,
is
no, 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 no. I'm asking. No, no, no. Listen. Metaphysics deals with why anything. I'm not asking why the number two exists. I'm asking you what it means fundamentally for anything to be true. Two does not answer what it means for anything to be true.
yeah, but it's some things
What it means
that
for
are true,
any state of
right,
affairs
are
to be
made true
actual.
number two.
Does two answer that question as to what it means fundamentally for any state of affairs to be actual,
For everything
as
or
opposed to
just
it not?
anything? There's a distinction.
Yeah, all things. We're talking about the grand scope of things, like all things.
No,
Like
I
what it
don't
means
Also,
for
know, but that would
that encapsulates
any and all state of
all
affairs.
things.
Yeah, any and all things. For what it means for them to be actual. Does the number two explain that at all?
yeah, I think the mistake that you're making is that that like all facts for some reason are explained by one singular like entity, like God. Maybe you're thinking. I think that there are different types of truths. There are mathematical truths. There are truths about the
Okay, well,
physical world. There are truths about
if they hold a metaphysic that is described by many things that are not ultimate, that will entail the falsity of God, because the God worldview is that there is only one fundamental thing. So again,
yeah.
you
I don't
haven't
know that
actually
that doesn't
refuted my
make any
point,
sense though.
right?
And then
Okay,
you
well,
talk,
it doesn't have to
and
make sense.
then
The point is that it entails the falsity of the other proposition, whether or not it's true,
It
whether or not
tells
it
the
makes
falsity
sense
of what?
to you. Each proposition entails a falsity if its negation. If the God worldview is that there is only one thing that's foundational and fundamental, that's going to be the basis for why all things are, and you hold that there is more than one or nothing, okay, anything other than one, you're gonna be by default, no, I wouldn't say, but you're just gonna be entailing the falsity of God, right? Necessarily,
Well, you might
because
be
the God
right.
worldview holds that there is one thing, and the other worldviews hold that there is multiple things. And if they hold that there's one thing, then they're going to have to. Uh, Either way, look, if it's not the God worldview, then it's going to be something else, and then that's going to be entail the falsity of the God worldview.
Okay,
So
yeah, I
you're not
see
going to
what
be
you're saying.
neutral.
I see what you're saying. If you're understanding God as like the entity that grounds all facts, then I find that unintelligible. So I would reject that. But the original question that you posted, Tom, was not it was not in that form. It was what is your what metaphysical proposition that do you believe? And you didn't really specify that proposition, but now it seems like you are right. It seems like the proposition is whether there is one single entity that grounds all facts, right? Maybe that I don't think that makes sense. Presumably, Tom doesn't think that makes
The
sense.
question, no, the question that I asked, okay, that we ended on, was a very simple and non-convoluted and non-complicated question. It was that if you're going to affirm a proposition, okay, does that proposition entail necessarily one thing or another?
It depends
Any
on the
proposition,
proposition.
is it going to entail that either God exists or that God does not
Yeah,
exist,
it depends on the
right?
proposition.
No, I'm asking you, are those the only two entailments that are going to be given by the metaphysical proposition that you assert,
Yeah,
the
again,
metaphysical worldview that you hold to? Yes or no?
yeah. You see the way you phrase it there. That's problematic because there are metaphysical views that don't entail anything about theism. But then what you're saying, you're kind of
No,
stipulating that
metaphysic
God.
as we're talking listen, metaphysics with relation to how I'm defining it, not as you're defining it as numbers. I'm not talking about numbers. I've made myself abundantly clear, right? I've made myself too clear
But
almost.
you're
Okay.
not letting me
When
make
when
myself
when
clear.
we're talking about when we're using the terms as I'm defining them, we're talking about the nature of things, the nature fundamentally of what it means for anything to your
Yeah, I agree with
ontology.
that.
Okay. Okay. Now, if the answer to that question is going to entail something about the ontology of the world. It's going to entail something about the ontology of reality, right? Because
Yeah,
it's a
no
question
problem
about
with that.
ontology. Okay,
No
good.
problem with that.
So the answer about the ontology, your answer about your model of reality fundamentally is either going to entail that God exists as that which is
Well, that's where it
ontologically
doesn't follow,
metaphysically
right? That's where
primary.
you're wrong.
Okay, listen, if let me just finish. Let me just finish. It's either going to entail that God exists, right? Or it's going to entail that God does not exist. And the reason why is because God is in the category of an ontological framework, right? Or a metaphysical framework, where God exists as that which is primary, and He's the reason and the basis why anything is the case, okay? Because it either accords with God or what God has created, or how God has constructed the world, right? And so whatever you affirm is going to entail one of the two propositions. Those are the only two possibilities, or that's the only possibility here.
Well, with respect to me, I don't find it I find it unintelligible to say there's one entity that grounds all truths. But with respect to Tom, he might be agnostic to whether there is this one metaphysical truth that grounds all other facts, and that's what he's agnostic towards. So to ask him, well, what
All
is
right, I
this?
want you to listen. Let's do it this way. I want you to present to me, okay, a proposition that affirms something with reference to the nature of reality that would not entail either God exists or that God does not exist. I want you to present to me a proposition that's going to neither entail neither of those two things. Go ahead.
Any metaphysical ontological view? I gave you one, but I'm not quite clear on the
No,
way.
no. If you're talking about the numbers analogy, I've explained to you why that's inadequate. I've
Okay,
explained
so
it to
I'll
you. You
give
didn't
you
give a
another
counter
one. I'll give
rebuttal.
you another.
So
I
listen. I'm going to make sure. Listen, hold on a minute. I want the question to be clear that you understand it. Okay, so that when you answer the question, you're going to answer in a way that's relevant and germane to the question I'm asking you. I want you to present a proposition that is going to be affirmed about the nature of reality, what it fundamentally means for things to be true, right? God being an example of that, where things exist in virtue of God. But give me something that would give me just any proposition that would neither entail that God exists or that God does not exist. That is in reference to the nature of truth, the nature of possibility and the impossibility, and so forth.
Okay, so you're asking for a metaphysical view of mine that sort of grounds all truth. Is that kind of what you're asking me
Yeah, what your ontology, the nature, the nature of being.
about
What does
that?
it mean for things to be?
I don't think there's any metaphysical position that quote unquote grounds all truth.
Okay, I want you to. Is there any proposition that you can affirm right now that is going to answer the question as to what it fundamentally means for things to be found, like what fundamentally means for things to be true, the nature of possibility and how things are?
No, I don't think there's a singular view that grounds all of those things. I don't think that's
I'm saying
intelligible.
give me an example of a metaphysic that's going to address this issue.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
That's neither gonna entail, by the way, that's neither gonna entail, okay, that God exists or that God does not exist.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I don't think it makes sense to give a metaphysical position that grounds all truth and possibility. I just don't know what that means because I think there are certain metaphysical
Okay,
possessions.
then okay. Is there any position that you know of? Just give me. It doesn't have to be one that's intelligible to you or that makes sense to you. Just give me a proposition that you made that may or may not be true, according to you,
Okay.
that neither affirms or denies, by entailment, the existence of God.
Okay, so I think there's free will. I think that's a metaphysical position. I don't think that entails God or not God.
With reference to the nature of ontology, the nature of being, free will does
Yeah,
not address the nature of being,
yeah.
of all things.
Is a ontological notion, right? So there exists free will.
Okay. We're talking about what it fundamentally means for things to be the case, okay, and why things are foundationally and fundamentally, okay? If you're going to answer that question, it's going to entail one of two things. This is like the last time I'm going to explain it because this is not complicated, okay? It's called the law of excluded middle. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's the third law of logic, where it says that for any proposition, there's going to be one of two truth values, either A or not A. It's either true or it's not true, right? Those are the two truth values that can be attributed to any proposition, okay? In that case, right, with that in mind, when you're affirming a proposition with reference to the metaphysical nature of reality, it's either going to entail that there is one God that exists, that is going to be the source and basis for all things, or it's going to entail that that's not the case, that there is not a God that exists that is foundational and fundamental. So if you're going to do this thing where you're going to appeal to multiple different things that all exist and that they're all like like supreme or whatever, I'm not going to use the word ultimate because I think ultimate just denotes one thing, but like they're all supreme or whatever in that sense, then that would also entail the non-existence of God. So you would not have given a proposition that does not entail one way or another that God does or does not exist. So you would not have succeeded in the task that I've given to you.
Yeah. What's the
So I want
question?
you to again present a proposition because you think they exist that would not entail that God does not that God does exist, and it would also not entail that God does not exist. Present a proposition that would do that.
Yeah, but I don't carry this presupposition that there's one singular entity or fact that grounds all truth and possibility and all of that. Is that what you're kind of understanding to
Can I
be
jump
this
in?
meta?
This is not listen. To posit that there is not one thing, and the creator creation distinction says that there is one thing, would mean that you're entailing the falsity of the creator creation distinction. Okay? So you haven't presented a proposition that would neither entail the truth nor falsity of the creator creation distinction, which I'm asking you to do. And it doesn't have to be your position, right? But you're saying that anyone can be agnostic if they're affirming a metaphysical framework with reference to the ontological, like the nature of things, the nature of being. Okay, and you're saying that someone can affirm a proposition that neither entails one way or another that concept. You haven't
Yeah,
done so. You haven't presented
you're
a
a.
proposition.
I think you're carrying a presupposition that like you need a metaphysical framework, like or one specific one to ground all sorts of truths. Where I just take that there are different reasons
No,
for
I'm
why.
not. I'm not supposing that.
Okay,
I'm
then I
saying you
don't.
can present. I'm saying if you present, even if you present a proposition, or if you present a a like a worldview where there isn't something that's foundational, right? Even though there may be like like Christians, theists hold that there are many proximate um starting points, there are many proximate explanations, but that there is one ultimate explanation, right? But if you don't believe that, if you believe that there's something else, right, then that would entail the falsity of God as he's been defined. That would entail the non-existence of God.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying in the sense that if you define God as being the thing that ultimately grounds all truth, possibility, whatever, right? Then I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm going to flatly reject that. But to someone like Tom, he might wonder whether it makes sense or not.
Okay, well that's not really the issue here. I'm not talking about Tom. Right now I'm talking about whether or not there is a proposition that someone can affirm, because Tom already accepted that they are affirming a proposition that would neither entail that God exists or that God does not exist.
Well,
Right?
look, Tom might
So
be
so
agnostic to your
let's pause it.
metaphysical
This
proposition.
will be the challenge. This will be the challenge to their sophist line of reasoning, to Tom's, because he's saying that they are affirming a proposition. That's what he already granted that, right? So what would have to be the case is that the proposition that they affirm with reference to the nature of reality neither entails that God does exist nor that God does not exist. Now, the challenge to him and to anyone else who wants to use this stupid line of reasoning is to present a proposition that would neither entail that is actually relevant, of course, to the nature of things, right? Now, what you've done is you presented many things. You said there are many explanations, but that would just entail the falsity of God, right? So, present a prop. If you can't do it, that's fine, because obviously you're not the main one that's making the claim. But that's the challenge here to Tom. He's here listening. If Tom wants to raise his hand and present it to me now, he can do that. If he wants to think about it and do it later, he can do that.
Yeah, the way I
But that's a
recall the
challenge.
conversation was a bit
Can
differently.
I can I jump in?
Tom asked for clarification of what this mysterious metaphysical proposition was, and I don't remember you giving an answer to that. But now that you
I didn't
clarified
really
that,
understand his question. I think he was just saying, because he was saying that in response to when I said if you affirm a proposition. He said, "What's the prop?" I just said, "If you affirm a proposition, it's just any proposition that any person affirms." There's no specific proposition in
okay,
mind. I'm
well,
just
like
saying
let's
that
say, well, if he
any
said that,
proposition is going to affirm that.
if he gave like he said, let's say he thought that the number 3 exists and it has the property of being odd, that would have satisfied you because that doesn't entail God or not God.
No, No, I'm saying any proposition of listen, any proposition with reference to the context, obviously. Like you're just being
The
pedantic.
context.
Any
What is
proposition with reference to the context
Hey,
of that which
JRobin,
is necessary
okay,
and
Danny,
ultimate.
Danny, I know how you get it late night. Stop being an idiot. We all know, you and I both know that you grasp what's being said. Please stop
No, I
being an idiot.
don't. John, maybe you can explain.
Yeah, then
Danny,
you're just playing
Danny,
dumb. That's what
Danny,
you're doing.
you
You're just
just,
playing dumb.
Danny, I watched your debate with Eric Hernandez today. Don't play dumb. And we all know that you think that there's nothing is necessary to ground all
Look,
facts.
John, you can contribute
We,
to the
we know that's your
conversation. I
position,
don't
Danny.
really need this. Like,
I'm
don't
not
play
trying to be a
dumb
dick
stuff.
to you tonight, okay?
Just contribute to the conversation.
You know I like you.
You don't play dumb.
But you're
I don't
not
want
this
you
dumb.
playing dumb, thinking that I'm
You're not
playing.
this dumb, Danny.
Yeah,
You
you're
and I
not this
both
dumb to
know
think that I'm just playing dumb, right?
you are.
Are you
You
being
are
this dumb
playing
to think
dumb.
that I'm playing dumb?
Yeah, there's no way that this is not clear to anyone
Jay,
who's listening and
Jay, right now
who's
it's
been
2
broken down
a.m.
to.
After about 12:30 Central Time. Danny just like he stops being reasonable. Okay, I
Yeah,
like
you're not
Danny.
going to be
Comes to
able
my
to show
channel.
that, John.
Danny,
Are you
please
going to
stop,
show
man.
that, or are you just make empty
Danny,
claims?
please stop.
Well,
We
you're
It
all
showing
sounds
it
like
right now,
empty
Danny.
claims to me,
J. Robin.
right?
It's not an empty
You're
claim.
not
Currently
this dumb
He's
to
showing
think
it
that
right.
I'm
You're
being
Jay.
displaying it
reasonable.
right now.
Danny is currently working on his master's in philosophy. Okay, he is not this stupid.
I just want to talk about the argument, right? I'm not really interested in the meta like John is, right?
This
J.
isn't
Robin, are you
complicated.
interested in the meta?
It's important right now to understand and get a
I
baseline
really didn't think
understanding of
you
how you
were a
operate.
meta guy, Red Robin.
Okay, listen. Right now, I'm not gonna do this right now. Okay, I'm gonna explain this to you one more time. I know there's like two other people they really want to speak. So if you don't understand this when I explain it one more time, really it's just a challenge at this point because I've explained it enough. Okay,
He does
the the
understand.
the,
He's
the
just
task the
pretending
task here.
otherwise.
Yeah, I know, of course. The task here is to present because you're accepting that you're affirming a proposition. That's granted. We've accepted that. That's on record. You're affirming a proposition with reference to your metaphysic, and of course, by metaphysic, I'm referring to your ontology. That is clear. I've made that clear. You're talking about the nature of being. Of course, why is that clear? Of course, because of the context of the conversation, and because I've made it explicit. Because we're talking about the nature of things, right? God is in that category, obviously, because I'm a Christian. I believe that. But there are other things that someone can believe that's in that category. The point is, you've accepted, Tom has accepted, other people have accepted that you're going to be affirming a proposition with reference to that. Okay? It's been clear. Now,
Well,
if
I don't accept that,
you're gonna,
right? I take a
okay, well, that's
plurality
fine.
view.
That's fine. That's fine. Whatever. That's fine. The point is, if you're going to accept, well, no, that will still be a proposition. Okay? The point is, you're going to be accepting a proposition or multiple propositions, a set of propositions with reference to the nature of reality. Okay, your metaphysical, that's going to constitute your metaphysical framework in this context as I'm defining it. Okay, so now with that in mind, if it's the case that you are neither affirming nor denying God, right, then you're going to have to give a specific proposition, right, or set of propositions that in conjunction with each other would not entail either God exists or that God does not exist. That's a challenge. Okay. Now
Well,
Tom is
unlike
still
Tom,
here.
I'm not an agnostic. So I'm just saying that if I think I don't think there's any problem in remaining agnostic with respect to what you're saying. So I actually don't think it makes sense to say that there's an entity that grounds all facts. Maybe someone's agnostic to that, and you can provide an argument for why they shouldn't be.
Okay. Well, Tom is back up on stage, so let's hear from him.
Yeah, I'm a
What is the
Gnostic, bro.
proposition that you're gonna? What's the proposition that you're gonna affirm? Okay, about when it comes to the nature of reality, that is neither gonna affirm nor deny God's existence. It's not gonna entail either one. Give me a
I
proposition.
don't know. Instead of saying me for a proposition which doesn't affirm or deny, if you're
Yeah,
saying that God is the ultimate, and all facts are the case because of God by definition, then if I deny that even one fact is because of God, then I affirm the not God worldview. I don't affirm either. Period.
that's not an answer to my question. I'll
I
repeat the
don't know what your
question
question
here.
was.
You accepted already, and you've made it clear that you've accepted this, and this is on record that you are affirming, and that if you're speaking meaningfully about the word, you're going to be affirming things with reference to the nature of reality, your ontology. Okay. I want you to present but you maintain that you can affirm a proposition and still be neutral as to whether or not God exists, which means that the proposition that you affirm will neither entail that God exists nor that God does not exist. That's what would have to be the case if you're affirming a proposition but still remaining neutral towards, like, you're not going to be affirming. So this is by definition, this is analytically the case by virtue of what it means to affirm things, right? That you're neither affirming God's existence. So the proposition here, with reference to the ontology, you're going to have to present a proposition that you're going to affirm that's neither going to entail God exists or that God does not exist. Are you willing to are you willing and able to do that right now, Tom?
He
I
actually
don't
did.
understand the question. Danny, do you? Can you translate for
I
me?
Wow.
want to
So,
answer.
yeah. So this is what he knows he can't actually do
No,
this, which is why he has to play
Danny
the
will just
dumb
speak to
game.
me in plain English, and then I'll be able to
Okay.
understand.
This
JRobin,
is
can you
plain
repeat the
He
English.
did.
question? I had to
Okay.
step
I'll
away.
repeat the question and I'll do it slowly and I'll do it in plain English.
Don't
Okay.
waste your time on these
Tom
clowns, man. Don't
accepted.
waste your
I'll do it
time.
one more time. I'll do it one more time for the benefit of the doubt, okay? And to make
Yeah,
it
I
clear
stepped
that
away. I'm
because
sorry about that.
because
Go
it's,
ahead.
it's obvious, I want to expose Tom's sophistry to everyone listening here.
Sophistry is
So um
fallacious reasoning. I
so
haven't given any
so
arguments yet.
so yeah, listen. What we're talking about here is God's existence or the metaphysical reality and whether or not you can be agnostic towards it. That's the subject matter here, okay? Now, Tom accepted already that he, along with everyone else who's speaking meaningfully and intelligibly about the world, is going to be affirming a metaphysic. Meaning, by that, they're going to be affirming things with reference to the nature of reality, their ontology.
No. The
That's what he
proposition
accepted.
that I expect, I
That's what you.
clarified right after, and
Mhm.
because you thought I said that, and then I said, oh no, that's not the proposition. Yeah, I was affirming. I was talking about affirming that one has to be agnostic, or sorry, has to take a position, right? And I said that, and then
You
you
no listen
scoffed at
listen. You
it. So
accepted.
you're
You accepted. I made this clear when I asked the question to you, and you accepted it numerous times. This is what I asked. Don't try to backtrack on it now. Please don't do that, okay? Because you're just going to embarrass yourself further. What I asked you was, if you're operating meaningfully in the world, right? If you're operating in the world intelligibly, rationally, you're going to be doing so with reference, meaning that you're going to be accepting um, a metaphysical framework, an ontological context, a view of the world, your model of reality, fundamentally, right? And you said, sure, go ahead, right? That's almost verbatim what you said the first time I said it. I told you, you said, go ahead, right? So you accepted this, you granted it to me,
yeah, but
right?
that view doesn't
And so
have to
from that, and
entail
so from
God.
and so from that, so let me finish. Let me finish. It doesn't have to entail. I know it doesn't have to entail God. That's not an issue here. Um, of course, then I made the claim, or I made the point that it is um, propositional, right? You're going to be affirmed because it's a view on something. It's going to be propositional, right? It's going to be a propositional. It's going to have propositional content, right? So let's encapsulate these first two. If you want to call them premises, we're going to encapsulate them into this here. Everyone who's operating meaningfully about the world is going to be affirming a proposition with reference to the nature of reality. Now, with that in mind, with that as a given, as Tom has granted that numerous times in the conversation, he still wants to maintain that these people can be agnostic towards whether or not God exists. By agnostic, of course, we're saying that they're not going to be affirming implicitly or explicitly the proposition that God exists or that God does not exist. So, but they are affirming a proposition with reference to the ontology, right? Which within which God is a category, right? God is in the category of your metaphysical ontological framework. So what he'd have to do, which I'm baffled at how anyone could even begin to substantiate this. So maybe Tom can help me out here. What Tom has to do is say that given this thing that we've granted, that everyone's affirming a proposition, this proposition that we are affirming, neither because you're agnostic, neither um, entails that God exists, and it doesn't entail the proposition that God does not exist. It doesn't entail either of them. So what I'd like to hear is a proposition, an example of such a proposition that neither entails that God exists or that God does not exist. So I'm waiting. If you can't give it now, then think about it. But I would love to hear that.
But
JRobin,
answering that
since we
question, it would automatically disqualify the agnosticism. If the agnostic needs to specify a proposition that's entailed by something that's
No,
implied
no,
by
no,
their
no, 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 no,
agnosticism, they would actually have to have knowledge of a proposition that would
no,
exclude
no,
their
no, no,
agnosticism,
Matt,
which would by
that's not true.
definition not make them agnostic anymore.
That's not true. Like for example, the proposition "I don't know what color the car outside is" doesn't entail that would be a proposition that does not entail that the car is blue or that the car is not blue, right? So if I'm saying I'm agnostic towards that, I'm saying that I can, the point is that I'm not affirming either proposition. The point is that he's saying he is affirming a proposition, though. He's saying he is affirming a proposition, but that the proposition doesn't entail either one of the two things that is in the category that it's supposed to affirm. So I'd
Oh,
love to
okay.
hear a
So,
proposition
right, I see
with
what you're
reference
saying
to
now.
the nature of reality that does not
Yeah,
that does not
you just
that does
So,
not.
so
misunderstand when I said affirming a proposition, it was not in reference to that, and you can go
Well,
back and you
that's no,
scoffed
okay.
at
So
it.
now
So I
now
mean,
you're backtrack. Then you're just backtracking
I'm
on
not
what you said earlier
backtracking.
because
You
I
were
made it clear.
wrong. You were
No, I made it
wrong.
clear because at the very onset of the conversation, I said that you're affirming things with reference to the nature of reality, your metaphysic. That's what I said, and you said okay.
Yeah, like an apple is
So
on the
either you
table
didn't
or
under, so
something
either
like
you
that.
didn't
Yeah.
understand, so either you didn't understand it, right, or you're just backtracking because you know
JRobin,
that
maybe
Well,
the
I
this
think
is
an
position, of
apple
course,
on
is
the
that you
table.
can't be neutral.
maybe JRobin, is this what you're saying? Let's say I believe in free will. The fact that if I think that doesn't entail God, on your view, that would make it to where my agnosticism is impossible if God is defined as the thing that grounds all facts, like the fact that I have free will. Is that kind of what you're
Well,
saying?
free will, yeah. The statement that free will does not, like the existence of free will does not depend upon God is going to be a statement
That God does
that
not
will
exist?
entail God does not exist. But
Yeah.
just positing free will itself is not going to be an answer to the question
Right,
as I
right.
posit.
So
It
I
wouldn't be
think
an
I've
answer to the
understood you, right?
ultimate grand scheme of
If
things.
Tom is an agnostic about your sense of God, which grounds all facts like I have free will, he would have to be agnostic about whether free will entails God or not God, right? But I think that what you're saying
Yeah.
is that Tom believes that he has free will, let's stipulate that, and also believes that that doesn't entail God, so he couldn't be agnostic towards your God. Is that what you're saying?
No, 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 no. Listen,
Okay, then
this is what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're going to be operating about in the world, right, with reference to the fundament, like if you're going to be operating meaningfully and intelligibly in the world, right? This I made this clear at the very onset of the conversation with
What do you
Tom.
mean by
Okay,
meaningfully? What do you mean? What does that mean?
that there's an ontological reference point that you are actually it's not just a existing without a context. It's not existing within a void. The statement that you're predicating means something with reference to the nature of reality. That is going to reference
Oh,
that there's real truth, that there are actual states of affairs, and of course that they're distinct from their
so you think
negation.
that like people that
Um,
get up, go to
that
work, and they're
I
like
am
are
still speaking. I'm
surgeons
still
and like
speaking.
speaking at
I'm still
NASA, and
speaking.
they
I'm
if
still
they
speaking.
unless they
I'm still speaking. You're muted. Okay, so you can go down to the audience if that hurts your feelings. Um, if you're speaking meaningfully about the world, right, you're going to be doing so with reference to the ontological state of affairs, right? And the nature of it, okay? Because truth to say that a proposition is true is only meaningful if you know what truth is, and of course how it's distinct from that which is not, and what of course the basis by which you can say that something is true. Okay. Same goes with when you appeal to fundamental relationships between facts or things like necessities and impossibility. You're just ultimately just talking about what the fundamental nature of reality is, what that is grounded in. Okay, what the basis of that is. Okay. If you can't answer that question, if the answer to that question is I don't know what truth fundamentally is what it refers to, what it actually is. Um, the metaphysical context that it exists within, then to invoke truth would be meaningless, right? Because you don't know what it refers to and how it's distinct, of course, from what it's not. And same with all the other things that I just mentioned, right? So the point is that if you're going to be, and people do this all the time, that people invoke truth all the time. They predicate all it every single day. They weigh certain outcomes. They think that certain things are possible and how probable certain things may be and how facts are related to each other. These are all metaphysical in nature, and they deal with the fundamental nature of how things are. Okay, so these are certain metaphysical propositions that need to be asserted before you can rationally, meaningfully, intelligibly speak and operate in the world. And Tom accepted that. I made that clear when I asked him. I asked him multiple times too, and he
Jay,
accepted it.
Jay, can I ask a quick
Ju-
question? Sorry if I'm cutting anyone off, but just for clarification, when you were saying about It has to, in order to predicate, you have to have, you have to know what truth is. Are you just saying that you're just asking for people to assert what their theory of truth is? You're not
Yeah,
saying
their
that they
model of
actually know
reality.
what truth is. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I just thought
Exactly.
how you worded that, I wasn't quite sure if you were saying no, you need to know what truth is, or you're just asking what people are asserting. So, if you're
No.
asking for a
Yeah.
metaphysical grounding, what you're asking for is what people assert is their metaphysical grounding. You're not asking
Yes.
what actually is the metaphysical grounding, correct?
Correct. Exactly. Right. So I'm just saying like having a metaphysical framework, whatever it is, true or untrue, is a necessary condition for rational and meaningful and intelligible predication and operation of the world.
Okay.
Um,
So just a follow
of
up on
course.
that. So
Yeah,
can
go ahead.
just a follow up and then I'm
Yeah.
done. But so where I see the agnostic position coming in is, sure, I can assert a naturalistic framework. I assert that, and I assert that's the context of which I predicate on, right? And I assert my theory of a truth and my theory of justification and whatever theories, right? But I'm agnostic to whether that actual theory is true. That's where my agnosticism would come in.
No, if you're going to assert it, then you're asserting it as the case. That's what your theory is. That's what it means for it to be
You
your
can't
theory, that you're asserting it as true. You believe it.
Yeah, but I know.
Otherwise, it's not
you
your
can't hold the
theory.
things
Yeah, but
you can't hold the things pragmatically.
asserting something is true and it being true is two different states, right?
Yes, but the point is that no, because you said that what you said it's a contradict. It's just a contradict. You contradict yourself. You're saying that I can assert something, but be agnostic as to what I'm asserting is true. But by definition, if you're saying agnostic, by agnostic, you're saying that you don't affirm the truth or the falsity of the proposition. So it'll just
No,
be an
no, no.
incoherent statement.
I'm saying that I assert my metaphysic as like I assume it's true, but I have no way of showing that it is actually true. So I'm
That's
agnostic to
fine.
whether it is true. I'm just asserting it as true, right?
Yeah, but I mean, that's fine. The proposition that you are asserting, right? The proposition is going to entail certain things, right? So we're asking what the propositions that they are holding to, or what the propositions that they're asserting with reference to their metaphysic, what they entail. The proposition that they entail with reference to the nature of reality, their metaphysic, as I've defined it, is going to entail either that God exists or that God does not exist. Okay, those are the only two possible entailments of what they I don't know if saying it that they believe it is gonna that's just gonna be they're gonna try to do that again, but like what they affirm, right? So um
Yo, just a quick
Yeah.
question, MJ Demore. Can I just ask you, do you believe that people can be agnostic towards God?
I'm trying to work it out in my head as far as what JRobin's saying. I I don't know. This is ironic. I guess if I don't know, I guess I have to say yes. But uh, what is your name? JRobin? Can I just pick your brain
J
really quick, just
Robin,
so we can
yeah.
get on the same, just so I can answer that question? I'm really struggling with this. If someone
hmm
were to say, "I don't know whether God exists," you're basically demanding that proposition. I don't know whether or not God exists. It needs to be situated within a larger kind of Weltanschauung, a worldview in which that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that proposition only makes
Okay.
sense with reference to a worldview, yeah.
And that's a condition for its meaningfulness or something. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
And then if I have an understanding of the worldview in which that proposition is embedded, then I also have this further knowledge of whether or not that worldview includes or excludes God's existence, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right. It's just gonna entail one or the other, yeah.
Okay, and so this is kind of an argument against the possibility of being agnostic, because in order for you to have a meaningful, robust, meaningful kind of agnosticism, you need to have these kind of worldview considerations that kind of situate that proposition, give it meaning, and all this stuff. And if you do that, then that is going
You
to
wouldn't be agnostic.
entail a
Right.
knowledge of God's existence
Exactly.
or God's non-existence.
Right.
Okay, so as far as okay, so let's just so you're saying if I don't get to that point, and if I'm not at that point where I can situate that proposition within a wider worldview kind of framework, I can't assert that proposition meaningfully. So I'm on the
Correct.
I'm on like the I'm on the I'm in a dilemma right now. Either I affirm my agnosticism meaningfully or I don't. If I don't, then I haven't said anything. If I do, then I do have a knowledge of the worldview in which it's embedded. But if I do have a knowledge of the worldview in which it's embedded, then I'm going to have knowledge of whether or not God exists. Am I
Yeah,
saying that right?
you understand this. You understand this extremely well. Wow. And I've only talked to you. This is like the only time I've ever talked to you, and you understand it better than the people who have been explained to, 40 different times and in dozens of occasions. So
Am I
thank
making
you.
sense? So whether or not
Yes,
you
you're
agree,
making
does
Well,
that
but
perfect
make
sense.
but
sense?
he's saying you
Okay.
can't be agnostic, but you're just coming
I
up
don't
with
know,
like,
but Matt is rep position. Whether or not he agrees right now is irrelevant. I think the position, and he understands
Uh,
the position. Okay,
well,
let
so
I
me
Matt,
understood
let
your
me.
position, JRobin, to be that you can't be
no, you
agnostic.
don't. No,
Matt
you don't.
just,
You
Ma-
you don't understand. You don't understand my position. Okay, Matt, go ahead.
look, can
I
someone
just
else
wanted to
So
make
tell him
that
he's
point.
breaking up
Thank
because
you.
he won't believe me or something? So just like,
no, Tom, I hear what you're saying. It sounds jarring at first. It really does because I think I understand what J. Robin's saying. To be completely honest, right now, because I'm trying to. I see what he's saying. The problem is, I think the tradition of analytic philosophy doesn't really approach philosophy in the way that the precepts do, in terms of isolated presuppositions being embedded within larger worldview kind of frameworks, like worldview approaches to philosophy. I think the tradition of analytic philosophy is just kind of like, okay, I got this isolated proposition, and let me just kind of motivate a theory of meaning to get this proposition off the ground. And if you look at like the history of philosophy in the 20th century, they don't approach philosophy in terms of worldview. Like it just doesn't happen. That's kind of like it just, and so it just sounds jarring to be on the fork of this dilemma of either I have to assert my agnosticism like in any without any kind of meaning to back it up, and meaning is being defined here as, look, I'm understanding this proposition as embedded within a larger worldview kind of framework. That's the way this theory of meaning is being, I guess, gotten off the ground.
well, let me.
I right?
Can I render
But
the argument as it's?
if I have a different meta philosophy, if I have a different approach to philosophy, I can see how agnosticism might sound like it makes a little more sense. But then the people that understand philosophy, conceptualize philosophy in terms of this worldview kind of thing, I guess they'll just attack that meta philosophy and just say, look, you can't even meaningfully assert that meta philosophy without a larger kind of metaphilosophical worldview type framework or whatever.
Can I just
It,
render
it,
the argument as it's usually presented to me and others for you?
for me?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
you're muffled. So it's usually like presented something like, God is defined as like being ultimate, and that just means that like everything that is or every fact is contingent upon him, right? So if there is even one fact that is not because of God, then God, like definitionally, is false. Correct? With me so far? And then
That
and then
sounds
they
good.
ask
Yeah.
you,
That's not really the. I mean, that's yeah. So like you're just like exposing that you don't really. We do say that, right? We're giving examples, right? So if you affirm XYZ proposition is going to entail that, but the argument, at least the one that I'm presenting right now to you, is that meaningful and intelligible predication requires a broader worldview. Just address the argument I'm giving you right now. Okay, it involves a
look, I don't know
worldview
why
that
you're
you're
so
asserting.
aggro. I just want to like have a short
You're
interaction with MJ. Demore, is that okay?
because you're being dishonest. That's why.
What
So
am I being dishonest about?
whatever. So please don't overtalk me. Please don't overtalk me. Um, you're going to be asserting a worldview. The worldview you assert, of course, is going to be propositional. Right? Worldviews are propositional, and so because of that, you're going to be the whatever proposition you affirm, because God is in the category. He's relevant to the discussion of your ontological framework. The worldview you assert is either going to entail that God exists or that God does not exist, just necessarily, logically necessarily. It's going to entail one of the two things, whether or not you want to realize it or admit it.
Okay, can I just finish
Do you have a
rendering the
rebuttal
argument
to
to MJ?
that?
Can I just have a moment with MJ? It's going to take less than a minute, man. It's a big deal. Okay,
I want to
so
hear a
MJ, if you
rebuttal to that.
Here, Tom. Let me listen in. My son's falling asleep. I got to put his hand under the faucet real quick. I'll try to listen as I
okay,
do this. Hold on one sec.
yeah, no problem. So then it's usually like that goes something like, Well, do you affirm like the God worldview? And then if they say no, then that's like implicitly saying that it's possible that some things could be the case, some fact could be true with uh, not because of God, and therefore you are an atheist. And the problem that I keep pointing out to these people is that they always want to ask about affirming God first, but it is a dichotomy where you could just ask if they affirm not God as the reason why some facts are. And by their own logic, their own argument, it would output that you're a theist, right? So they're to the agnostic, right? Depending on which side they ask first, it's going to actually give both answers.
No, it couldn't give both. So again, this is you had just have this you have that conversation in your head, just like you're not actually focusing on what anyone else is saying. You just want to drive home that stupid point. And I've explained to you why that's not that can't happen, right? Not if you're going to be accepting the laws of logic. Okay, you'd have to reject them in order for you to do that, because the position that you hold to is going to logically commit you to one of two positions. Okay, so if the answer to that question is um, no to both of them, then you just be rejecting the law of excluded middle. That's what that would lead you to be doing. You'd be rejecting the law of excluded, which is what it sounded like you were doing, which is why I was asking you for an example of a proposition that you
When
could
you say
present. That
when
would
you
be
say
in
you
that
don't
would be in
believe
that
either,
category. Let me finish. Let me
when you say you
finish.
believe
Let me
I you don't,
finish. Let me finish.
Jesus, man.
Which is why when I asked you, presenting a challenge for you to provide a proposition that would neither entail that God exists or that God does not exist. But you couldn't do that, of course. That was what would be necessary in order for you to falsify what I'm saying. Or for, of course, you to say that you don't need to affirm a proposition with reference to the nature of reality to be meaningfully speaking about the world, which, of course, you haven't done, nor could you defend.
Jay,
But if you want to
Okay,
try to do that, then go ahead.
so
can
to
I
complete
play
my
devil's
point,
advocate?
hold on a second. Let me complete my point
Okay,
because I have to wait
no
through
problem.
like minutes of JRobin bloviating before I can talk. So when you say I don't believe, I don't affirm this side, and then you say I also don't affirm that side, right? That's reference to your beliefs about the proposition, right? The breaking of the law of logic of the excluded middle is going to be one that's ontological, right? If you're saying that ontologically that neither one is the case, then yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Okay, go ahead, Matt. I've explained it to him. He's just not mentally capable of
Jay,
understanding it. It's okay.
I want to play devil's advocate here. I'm
I
not an
caught
agnostic,
like
but
5% of it,
I'm
so it's my fault. You said
I wish
invoke, not
JRobin would
God.
stop
It,
gaslighting people. He's doing it all the time. Every single time he's gaslighting people. It's
I'm
ridiculous.
thinking maybe so if you're a philosophical naturalist, right? You might have the proposition that everything inside of time and space and ontology can be explained, but something that is outside of time and space is not relevant to us. So that's maybe a proposition that they might. I don't believe it's a good proposition, and there's a counter argument to it. But I'm thinking maybe that's the best counter argument that they can give, because philosophical naturalists like they don't think that something that is outside of God being outside of time and space is relevant. So they'll just say we don't know. That's it. We stop here. We
Oh
can't
no, that would
explain
just
that.
that would, if you're going to affirm the proposition that nothing outside of time and space and by that we're just saying it's not like extended in them or contingent, like they're not temporally contingent or anything like that. That would entail the non-existence of God, because God exists as that which is not temporally contingent or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
but they might say, it's pseudoscience, so it's not. We can't deny or affirm it, because we can't really uh, use
no,
our sensical data or any like.
then they'd be contradicting themselves, because if we're taking the proposition that they believe that nothing that exists that's not temporally or spatially contingent or anything like that, if they believe that, if they're affirming that proposition, right, then that's going to entail that there is nothing that is that way, right? It just entails itself. And if God is in the category of something that, or if God has a property of being non-derivative or non-contingent, spatially or temporally, then that would just mean that God doesn't exist,
Yeah, I think
according to
with
their.
them, I think they what they do is they undermine reasoning and a priori knowledge and other things. They just rely so much on what's inside the time and space, and maybe they don't really they don't really think about reasoning and philosophy and stuff like that. I think that's where it comes from. Really, it's something about their principles. To be honest, it's not really, we don't really agree with the same principles. That's a problem.
That's
Well,
laughable.
I mean, look, this is a task that's up that they need to fulfill. Okay, now they haven't given a rebuttal. In fact, they've done the opposite. They've accepted that meaningful predication requires an affirmation of propositions with reference to the nature of reality. Right? Now, if they want to recant on that, if they want to backtrack on that, they can do that. But then they're gonna have to give a rebuttal to that. Right? They're gonna have to, if they want to give a counter argument, they're gonna have to rebut that point. Um, but then, saying that they grant it, right? Then they'd have to then present a proposition that will be with reference to the nature of reality, because they're affirming a proposition with reference to the nature of reality, that would neither entail that God exists nor that God does not exist. If they're going to maintain that they don't hold a position, or that they're not implying a position, right? They're not verbalizing a position that is entailed by what they do say. Right? The point is that whatever they verbalize, whatever worldview that they hold to, entails whether, and Darth says this all the time, whether you realize it or not. What Tom is talking about is irrelevant. Whether you realize it, admit it to yourself or to anyone else. The point is, the entailment
You're breaking
is
up,
the
bro.
entailment. You either are going to, which is, am I better?
Nope.
Am I
Keep
better now?
Yeah, I think
Nope.
I
Okay,
think it's better
give
now.
me a sec. I might. Okay.
He's not
The
better,
point
bro.
is, I
Stop
was
telling
saying
him he's
that
better when he's not
exactly.
better, dude.
No, now it's
Just
breaking
because
up.
he
It
gets
was
one
better
word
for a
out,
second.
fine. Don't tell him he's better. He's just gonna
No,
start
it
talking
was good
again.
for, in my end. It was good for a bit, but then it came back.
I might. I'm just gonna reconnect on a different device. That'll
I
definitely
mean, we
make
can
a
hear you
better.
now. Now it's
Um,
perfectly clear.
okay. I'll just finish this point. Okay. What Tom was saying is completely irrelevant, right? As you hear Darth saying all the time, whether you realize it, whether you admit it or not, the point is that what you believe or what you verbalize entails things. Okay, so by implication or explicitly, you're going to do or you're going to verbalize, you're going to predicate something that will entail the falsity or the existence of God, or I'll say the non-existence or the existence of God, whether you like it or whether you admit it or whether you realize it. It's just a fact of the matter. So Tom doesn't have anything that's going to rebut that is going to be entailed by what you say, unless he wants to give that. Your psychological self delusion is not really relevant here. What you want to say you believe or
Yeah.
don't
So your
believe is not
rebuttal is
relevant to what we're talking about. We're talking
your
about whether
rebuttal
or
to
not
me being
what you.
agnostic is just you're lying. That's all it comes down to. And
No,
that's
it's not.
exactly
It's
what
the
Darth said.
no. Agnosticism is the verbalization that you neither affirm nor deny God's existence. The point is that you do affirm. It's just not explicit. It's an implicit affirmation of facts. You don't need to explicitly affirm things to affirm them. An affirmation just means that you're verbalizing the truth of a proposition. All right.
That's
So
different, Robin.
you can verbalize or
That's
the
not
truth of a
true.
proposition by implication. That's what you are. That's what you're doing in the case of agnosticism. You're verbalizing the truth, the proposition that there
No, no,
is no
that's not
God.
true.
I
I
think I
wonder
think
if you could
hey, I think you
understand
should
it this
ask
way.
them. Do
Like,
do they do
What
they
Agnostics,
isn't true?
agree? Do they
agnostics don't
agree?
even need to be aware that they're agnostic, right? You don't need to utter that you are
Yeah,
agnostic, and
but
you don't need to affirm or deny anything.
but no, that's
No,
not the point. What Jay is saying.
agnostics say that they neither affirm nor deny,
No,
which is just saying that like whatever propositions that they
no,
affirm don't
that's wrong.
entail that God exists or does not. That's what agnosticism is. I don't know what you're
No,
telling.
no,
I mean,
agnostics,
I'm not going to
agnostics
argue
don't.
over this with you.
Not all agnostics know that they're agnostic.
Okay, I'm not. Look,
You
look.
say you
I'm not
just
gonna. I'm
don't
not
need
gonna.
to
This
be
is this is
aware.
this is
Not
too late
all
for this.
agnostics
The
It is
believe
too
way,
late
that.
for this.
wait, wait, wait,
It's
wait,
too late for
wait.
this.
The
Something.
way you're
MJ,
using the
is MJ
word,
there
No, but
still? MJ, are you
the
there?
way,
the point that I'm
I
trying
wait,
want to
wait,
talk to
wait,
him, but I can't.
hold
I'm
on.
still here,
The
but my
the
mic
way you're
is,
using
I
the
think,
word
off
agnostic,
because I don't think anybody can hear me.
I can hear you.
the way you're
It
using the
does,
word agnostic is
I can't hear you.
very,
They're just
very
constantly over talking you.
messy. Because here's the thing: if you don't even need to be aware, I don't even know how you're using the word because a rock isn't aware. Would you say a rock is agnostic?
I
Wait, you're
don't think
talking to
that
me?
matters because if you're not aware, you're still neither affirming nor denying, right?
Right? Is a rock an agnostic though?
According to Aaron
Whether
Ra,
you
yeah.
want to talk about something else
I'm
doesn't
just kidding.
matter.
I'm sorry.
But
Yeah,
no,
but
Oh, okay.
I
this
honestly,
is
you
couldn't
the
guys have
way.
to
resist.
go.
I couldn't
I wanted to
resist.
ask MJ very quick. This is
Wait,
very
wait
quick.
a second. Is that you, MJ?
Yes, it is, of
Are you
course.
gonna hug
Oh,
me?
okay, I didn't realize
We should
that.
just
I
we should just hug each other and get it out of the way.
yeah, but MJ, so this is the way I'm
Okay.
seeing it,
I
right? Like,
found you
and
finally.
I'm certain.
Yeah, I
I'm
haven't
quite
seen you in a
confident.
while, man. Good to see you.
MJ,
I'm
I'm quite
sorry, Danny.
confident that
My
I
bad.
haven't fully understood J Robin, but this is the way I'm interpreting it is suppose someone says that X is epistemically necessary, and then I ask you, uh well, let's say God is epistemically necessary. And your claim, and let's say you claim that, well, I know things, but I don't believe in God. You can't. It doesn't seem like you can be agnostic to that sense of God, right? Because you're affirming that you know things without God participating in your web of beliefs, right? Um,
Yeah,
and
it's
so
basically saying like I see
Well, I don't. I'm not
things.
claiming. I'm not
Like let's
claiming
just
like an
say.
epistemic. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just always bring up this analogy. It's kind of apropos. It breaks down, but like if I were to say, yeah, I see everything in the room, but I don't believe in photons, right? Maybe I don't
Yeah, that's the
have
exact
like
same thing.
knowledge of photons. I don't like agree with the arguments for photons, but unbeknownst to me, if it weren't for photons, I wouldn't be able to see anything, right? I
That's
guess
like
that's the
intentional versus
way.
extensional
well,
context
that
in
gets
logic.
trickier. I think it's
Kind of.
because there, I think you could like you just be misinformed. You're not irrational, right?
I
Yeah,
think
Exactly.
that's where the analogy breaks down. Yeah.
It'd
yeah.
just be
Okay,
No, wait,
like
wait.
Superman.
It's
I
the
think like
same
on the
thing.
SCP they say like Superman versus Clark Kent. Like they believe that you can believe that Superman doesn't exist, but you can believe that
right.
Clark
Yeah,
Kent
you're not
does exist, even though
irrational. You're not
Superman.
like a logical
Yeah,
fool who
but
thinks.
I guess the relevant
in your
similarity with the
example,
analogy would have to be
in your
like intelligibility would have to be like the light or something.
Yeah,
in
this is
your
why I want to talk
example,
about
like
epistemic necessity. Sorry, Tom.
in your example, right? It seems to be implied that this individual accounts for him seeing because of photons. So there's some sort of direct conflict. But in the case of this agnostic thing, right? The role of photons is basically up in the air, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, and we're
Right.
talking, yeah. So I don't really think it's a very good analogy.
Right, my
Yeah,
analogy is
Uh,
probably
the relevant similarity would just be, if photons didn't exist, then he couldn't see anything. If God didn't exist, he couldn't know anything.
but
But
the agnostic is
photons and
trying to
God
say that.
definitely differ
Yeah.
from each other in the sense that photons aren't, necessary for intelligibility. So that's where it would break
Well, they
down.
this
can
is why
even
I
just like
prefer.
grant. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
I mean, they could just even grant that. I mean, like, just God is, photons are necessary to see things, and you just can grant that, like, tentatively, just as we would grant JRobin with this concept of God that, like, all facts are because of God, right? But
Yeah, which
then
is
what?
why I like the
Because of
example
the
of
relevant
epistemic
dissimilarity,
necessity.
though, that you can be agnostic about photons in a way, it sounds like you can't be agnostic about God
Yeah, you
because
can't be
intelligibility is
agnostic
definitely going
about
to be different than
something
sight.
that
Yeah.
if you're claiming knowledge, and someone's saying that you need X for knowledge, but you don't hold, you can't be agnostic about X. It seems like, um, but um, yeah, I think that's what's going on here.
There's a theory of meaning. That's the other horn of the dilemma. If I understand JRobin, and I'm just trying to understand the position, it sounds like if you can't trace back the conditions for intelligibility for any proposition that you affirm, it's literally meaningless, even if you don't know that it's meaningless. So if you go back to like the logical positivism debate, like in the 20s and 30s, and you had theists back in the day saying God exists. And unbeknownst to the theist, if logical positivism were true, then they're uttering something that's utterly meaningless, even if they're being sincere and they're not lying about what they think to be true. I guess it would be a kind of analogous to what's going on.
So
Well,
JRobin,
yeah, I would
basically,
just
am
if
I
x
completely
equals y or z,
representing that
oh,
improperly?
sorry, sorry.